do you dispute any of the PRVs or OBs?
Your Honor, I want to put a general complaint on the record is what I want to do. I was set and then, excuse me, she turned my phone down in the court. Hold on. I was given this by the
Welcome back to Time Served, the channel that scans the docket so you don't have to. I'm Phil, and today we have a special sentencing hearing from one of our favorite, Judge Stevens. He's on full display as he deals out a penalty for what he calls the scourge of the earth. This is a serious case, and I warn you ahead of time, if you are triggered by the M word, consider yourself forewarned. There are recordings, family members, and pleads for the defense that, in my opinion, the poor victim, I'm not the pew pew guy, it's him. That defense really doesn't fly with Judge Stevens, and in my opinion, makes it worse. This is a serious case, and there's no pistachio eaten from Judge Stevens on this one. Let me know how you feel in the comments about this case. Was the sentence too harsh? Was Judge Stevens too lenient? Let us know. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe, set your notifications to all, and never miss the daily docket. I'm Time. You've been served. Court's in session. Let's roll, nerds.
Yes, Judge, I believe that's
Father,
been applied with.
my cousin, my brother, my fiance. All right. And did we get character letters from several of them? And are we asking the court to look at these character letters for purposes of sentencing? Right? And what I'll do is, once you finish your testimony, I'll submit these letters to the court, okay? She has more. Okay, let me get that from her real quick. All right. Now, Judge just asked the question. He said, hey, are there any additions, corrections that we want to add to the pre-sentence investigative report? And did you hear me say, yes, they are, right? Yeah. All right. If we look at the first paragraph of the pre-sentence investigative report, it identifies that specifically that the first victim, Rudy Vasquez, stated that two black males approached him, Joel Martinez, and demanded money for them. A struggle ensued, shots was fired, and the subject wearing the red ski mask obviously is the one who did the shooting, because Joel Lopez Martinez ran inside his house, and I guess while he was running inside his house, apparently he was shot and killed. All right. All right. But when Judge asked, hey, do we have any additions or corrections? One thing that the PSI does not tell our judge that I think that's relevant for sentencing, because if I'm a judge, I'm going to want to know this, okay, is who was the shooter, right? Right? Okay. So who was the shooter is very relevant to sentencing for determining how much time you're going to get, how much time the shooter is going to get. Would that be correct? You understand that? Yes. Yes. All right. And in this particular case, did you have an opportunity to speak directly to Jalen Lott? Did you have a chance to talk to Jalen Lott? Yes. Are you familiar with his voice? Yes, sir. Do you know his voice? Yes. When talking with Jalen Lott, did you get a 2-minute video with Jalen Lott where Jalen Lott admits that he is the shooter and he's the one that's the shooter in this case? Yes. Right? And that particular video, that particular audio would be this.
Not to no shit, nigga. That's first and foremost.
Got Jalen Lott talking?
Second, nigga,
Oh man, I'm just trying not to get educated in some shit that, you know what I'm saying, wasn't my work, bro. And nigga ain't about to be, all I'm saying, bro, nigga ain't about to be like nothing, because I ain't about to see it for the motherfucking pro. I ain't trying to be, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? A nigga in your face and shit, and then on court day, some whole other shit going on, bro. It's like playing with clothes, bro. Come on, man. And you know me, bro. Come on, you think I don't work like that, fam? I look like, that's gonna get us both fucked up, fam. Man, so oh man. Tell you, bro. Oh no, bro. Man, tell you, bro. That's every time, like, man, bro, that's all they keep telling me, bro. My little sources, bro. I ain't nothing to say about that, bro. I've been like, bro, that's gonna give me something to help me. And I'm just saying, bro, like, you both man down, what a nigga over did, bro. If it is that, I'm saying, bro, I'm just saying, bro, like, damn, come on, fam. Come on, fam. I just talk to you like that, just like shit. I'm saying, though, bro, right after that, somebody called me and told me otherwise. The first I talked to was right about that, I was shit, nigga. I'm saying you can't fault me, bro. Anybody else would have reacted. But I ain't even ludicrous. But I'm saying, you know what I'm saying? But I'm saying, though, fam, what the fuck you think? I ain't strapped, I ain't nothing. Come on, fam. I'm just saying, bro. Anybody else, bro, would have took that shit. Hey, oh, haywire, bro. I'm trying to be calm about this shit, bro. Fuck, I look like 10 on you, my nigga. Man, they try to sound like you said I shot the nigga. I didn't tell them people so you can get a plea. That's stupid as fuck. I ain't talking to no motherfucker about it, bro. No one. Nigga, that's the bitch that said it. Come on, fam, I just trying to call. I'm like, what the fuck is she talking about, man? Come on, fam. Oh, I'm just trying to see, bro. Like, that's what it is. Just let me know. Yeah, that's not what it's gonna be, though. Fam, but it's gonna be on separate ways, bro. Like, I ain't fucked up about it, bro. Playing fam. For one, I never tell on no nigga, man. Let alone something that you ain't even had nothing to do. That wasn't even your work, friend. Come on, my nigga. That shit is so tough. Come on, Bernie. Honestly, really. Let's be real about you. You ain't even do that, fam. I ain't pointing no finger, bro. I'm just saying I ain't pointing no finger, bro. I just want to know, bro. That's it, bro. I'm listening to you. I'm just saying, I just let know, son. All that, man. I put it on my phone. If you come down and I find them up, send them up the road. I'm tired of shit anyway, bro. Before you point the finger at you saying you did shit that you ain't got no blood on your hands, man. So why the fuck would I ever make sure to do that, man? It's always shit like this. I ain't trying to make you feel no type of way, brother. I'm fine. This nigga, this both our lives, bro. You know what you gotta do. You know what you gotta do. But at the same time, I ain't nobody paying us for us to try to take over. Man, we gotta go out and beat this shit. You know, bring on some pussy and shit like that. Oh, my nigga. Why y'all got the shit all fucked up anyway? Y'all need to prove that that man did this shit. Nigga, they got the whole round. With the spin shell case in that picture, the other thing was the 9 and he top the thing. I just read the picture. The other thing when I was on that Saturday, right?
All right, so when judge asks, hey, are there any additions or corrections to the PSI? This is a conversation between you and this man right here, Mr. Lott. Mr. Lott, is that correct?
Right.
And y'all are having a conversation about this particular case, the death and the killing of Mr. Joel Lopez Martinez. Y'all are talking about that particular case, aren't y'all? Right. And y'all talking about that particular case, Mr. Lott does not know that he's being recorded, does he? He's talking freely and he's talking just using loose language, isn't he? And in talking freely and using loose language, he's telling you, I'm not telling shit. That's his language. He's not talking to police. He's not telling shit, right? He refers to Marsha Norman as his lawyer and said and talks about her and say, we didn't pay her to take a plea. We paid her to get out of this shit. I'm not taking a plea on this pussy shit. That's what he's saying, right? And in this particular case,
Is there a reason you need to shout?
oh, I'm sorry, Yon, I can go down. I apologize. In this particular,
And also, as that wouldn't, what you have done so far on that purported recording would never be admissible in any court in the way you've done it so far, because there is no time, place, circumstances that show any relevance or genuineness about it. And if you're going to let me, if you're going to submit it to me for me to consider, you need to use the rules of evidence to introduce it so that we have validity and relevance and authenticity of it.
Okay.
Because that could have been made 10 years ago. I don't know. You haven't impressed this court yet on when and what the circumstances were of that meeting
okay, let me ask you then.
to make it admissible in the first place.
When the recording that we just listened to, when was that recording made?
I have to look at my phone.
Or was it made after the death of Mr. Velasquez? Right? Was it made after the charges were filed for murder on both you and Mr. Lott? Was it made after then?
Yes.
Where were you when the recordings was made? Where were you?
Exact location.
Well, where were you with him? Yeah, exact location. Where were you?
Talking in the street.
Y'all were talking in the streets and y'all were in the streets of Port Arthur. And this would have been after the date that Mr. Velasquez was killed, right?
Yeah.
And in that recording, Mr. Lott says that was his work, right?
Yes.
He says when y'all are talking about the murder, what the fuck I look like telling on you? Is that what he says?
Yes.
He goes on to say, this was not your work. You ain't even do that, fam. Is he talking to you?
Yes.
Is Mr. Lott saying, I banged him, send me up the road, I'm tired of this shit. So when Mr. Lott says, I banged him, who did Mr. Lott bang? Who did he bang?
Once again, do I need a street talk dictionary here to use? Oh, let's use, if you're going to use street language, let's use the conventional English language to translate it. So we know what the terms you're intending mean.
I can do that.
Come on, we're not going to be pulled down to this low level of communication. Let's use the English we learned in school.
All right.
Judge, and with all due respect, I of course love the court's objection to this testimony. I've been sitting here in fairness trying to let Mr. Langston correct whatever he thinks is wrong with the PSI, but this audio tape, this language, this whole line of questioning and back and forth is inadmissible. First of all, the court's aware of that. Mr. Langston cannot cure the defect of it. He cannot make it admissible, but it's been fun to listen to. So I renew my objection. It's inadmissible. If he wants to correct his report, fine.
Okay, overruled, but the court will consider only evidence that is admissible, is relevant, is admissible under the rules of evidence. It doesn't give anybody a fair opportunity to ensure that it has a validity, which is what the whole rules of evidence are all about. But you're allowed to attempt to get your point across and go ahead.
So when you're talking directly to Mr. Lott, and we heard the recording, right?
Yes.
Right. Mr. Lott specifically tells you in this recording, you ain't got blood on your hands. So when Mr. Lott says you ain't got blood on your hands, how did you interpret that?
They were ensuring that I know I did not kill intent or kill anybody.
Okay, so for the purpose of adding to this PSI, when the PSI is unclear as to who was the shooter, in that video, did Mr. Lott make it very clear that he's the one with blood on his hands? Did he make that clear?
Yeah.
Did you actually see with your own eyes, not only listening to what Mr. Lott say, but did you see Mr. Lott shoot and kill this man in cold blood? Did you see it with your eyes?
I tell you that it would be a lie.
What did you see?
All I know is this, the shot went through the door. So I mean, I can't just sit there and lie to you.
Who was behind the door?
Guessing the man that passed away.
Did you shoot anyone behind that door? And did he tell you you don't have blood on your hands? Did he tell you, send me up the road, I'm tired of this shit?
Yeah.
What else?
Well, excuse me, I'm just going what was on
Let's move
audio.
along.
Okay, well, as far as this, let's end on this point for this particular area. Throughout the PSI, you have indicated remorse for the man's death, haven't you?
Yes.
Right? You indicated remorse in this PSI when we look under defendant's version, and you say, me and my friend was at someone's house with intentions of robbing them, didn't plan on anyone getting hurt. I was there, but did not shoot anyone. I'm remorseful about the circumstances that took place. That's what you said, right? But when Mr. Lott talked to you, he called this case pussy ass shit. That's the language that he used. You want to play it again? That's his language. You remember that?
Yeah.
So in terms of remorseful, Mr. Lott tells you what he thinks about the case, doesn't he?
Yes.
If you go on in this PSI,
Wait, okay.
I'm sorry, I'm going
I know
to,
I know there's contrasts here in the pre-sentence report, but each person stands on his own circumstances. All you're doing is condemning the other defendant, who may have his own matters to deal with. But we're here in this particular hearing, right this moment, we're dealing with your client and his culpability.
let's deal,
Not comparing it. I've seen the comparison, but
and I was only
we're
adding.
spending a lot of time condemning the co-defendant or Mr. Lott. But that's not your job. Help your clients so I can understand what the circumstances are that are unique to him when this court enters its sentence. Go ahead.
Okay, so let's talk about your circumstances. Would you agree with me that we made it very clear who shot and killed the man? Would you agree with that? That right? And the shooter in this case is Jalen Lott to my right. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, let's talk about the positives in you. When we look at this PSI report, if on specifically when you were evaluated and screened, TRS scored low risk for you. All right. Let's talk about you. To my understanding, you have no prior felony criminal history. Is that right? And then the only misdemeanor history that I see in this report is a possession of marijuana where you got pretrial diversion. Is that right? Graduated. When you graduated from high school, what did you graduate from high school from?
I was talking about like off the probation.
Oh, from probation. But I said, well, what did you graduate high school from?
More.
When you graduated from high school, did you become employed?
Yes, sir.
And becoming employed, where did you work?
I worked when I was 16.
And in working when you were 16 years old, how many jobs have you had?
I worked a lot of them.
Do you have a family?
Yes.
And do you have children?
Yes.
Who are your children?
Ryan Rothstein, Ryan Rothstein, Young Rothstein.
Are you asking the court to consider that you have children, you had no prior felony criminal history, and your misdemeanor history was limited? I'm looking at this possession of marijuana. So if we look at the fact that he's the shooter, you have low adult criminal history, are you asking the court for purposes of this cap to take that into consideration? I'm sorry, go ahead. All right. Are you also asking the court to take into consideration that unlike Mr. Lott, you accepted responsibility and you were remorseful? Is that the case? And even more so on page 3 and 4 of the pre-sentence investigative report, where Mrs. Candy Banks, who is making the recommendations and she's writing this report, says the defendant did admit to his involvement in the plan to rob the victims. He went on to say he looks at life much different since it's taken place and plans to do better moving forward. The defendant stated that he was not thinking about his children or anyone else at the time, but realizes that he could receive prison time and not be able to be a part of their lives for some quiet time. That's what Mrs. Banks said. Is that all true and correct? So when we look specifically at what the agreed range of punishment on this case from 5 years up to 20, considering you've accepted responsibility, he has not, he's the shooter, you are not, you have no or limited criminal history, I can't speak to his, and then moreover, you have a family and you have had steady employment. Is that correct? Right. And he's the one who said, send me down the road, right? Yeah. So if the judge is to give him his wish and send him down the road, are you asking based upon what you've testified to now that the judge, if he does, well, the sentence that he give you, it'd be on the lower end, and we're asking for 5 years on the lower end? And do you see why we're making that recommendation? Yes, sir. All right. Now, here are the letters that you have. Are you asking me to submit these letters? Did you hear my request for Judge Stevens to hold his ruling in abeyance until he's heard from the other side? Did you hear me say that? And after he has a chance to look at these particular letters,
how many of these? How many are these?
I didn't know.
Okay.
I don't think so. I think
You want to refer to these as like defendant's exhibit 1 for this hearing?
Yes, sir. Defendant's exhibit 1. So for purposes of our time, you have several people here on your behalf, right? Yes. Collectively, what would those letters say about you as it relates to punishment in this case? Collectively, will your mom be supportive of you? Everybody's been over. All right. And are you remorseful and sorrowful for participating with Mr. Lott at the time Mr. Lott shot and killed this man? Do you wish that you were not with Mr. Lott when Mr. Lott shot and killed this man? Do you wish that you could take that day back when you were Mr. Lott, with Mr. Lott, and Mr. Lott shot and killed the man? Yeah, I'm gonna let you say so. Do you wish that you weren't there on that day? Yeah. All right. And we heard Mr. Lott in his own words, didn't we? You said that you want to say something, and I'll sit down now. Can you look at our judge, talk to him in your own words, and ask him, Judge, here's the reason why I'm asking for the 5 years. This is what you need to know. Talk to him.
And Dennis, please tell the jury to relax. It's going to be at least another 30 minutes. Okay, thank you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Talk to him directly.
Like today, I didn't come with any sympathy or anything. Like, I'm really just owning up to my wrongs and being a man about the situation, and just praying that you some type of way. I know somebody got bodily injured, and so like I'm just hoping that you'll take not just sympathy, but take a little thought about my family and my kids. That's all I ask.
How old are your children?
I have a 7-year-old, she just turned 7, a 4-year-old, and a 9-month-old baby.
Okay, so 2 of them were at home when you were doing this?
Okay?
2 of them were at home when you were doing this? And now you're a family man now? Weren't you a family man on the date of this event?
Yes.
What is it you did that resulted in these 2 people being robbed and 1 being killed? What did you do? I'm reading it, but I want to know what you're going to admit to under oath. A man who should have been at home with his family.
All I can admit is being there.
What did you, you just were standing there like a bump on a pickle? What did you do? What did you do in playing the part, sir?
I went along with the whole.
What did you do? Tell me.
I'm telling you honestly, like I was involved. Like that's all.
You're just saying I was involved. Be specific.
I didn't shoot anybody.
You robbed these people, didn't you?
We didn't take anything.
Sir, weren't these 2 people, these 2 victims here, approached by y'all?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and did 1 or more of you have a gun and threaten them?
Yes, sir.
All right, and here, tell me what you did other than just be an casual observer. You were standing there. I'm sorry, there were 2 of you had masks. What color was your mask you were wearing? What color? No, don't look at him. You're the guy that's charged. You're the one under oath. There's a black mask and a red mask. Which one was yours?
The red man.
Sir?
The real.
The red one. Well, I'm not through. I'm sorry. Talking to him. You passed it. The red one. Okay. The guy with the red mask was struggling with Joel. The guy with the black mask started sticking his hands in my pockets, asking me to give them my money. This is the statement under oath by the other victim who survived. The guy with the black mask started sticking his hands in my pockets, asking me to give them my money. He took $7 that I had in my right pants pocket. They were all $1 bills with some coins. The guy with the red mask came over to where I was at and started helping the guy with the black mask. The guy with the black mask struck me in the back of the head with the gun. Joel saw his chance to escape and he ran towards the door. I saw Joel open the door. The black male started yelling at Joel to stop. The guy with the red mask fired 1 shot at Joel. I hit the ground to get away. The black males fired 2 shots at me and they ran away towards the woods. They ran towards the firewood. I don't know who fired the shots at me. I ran into my room, put my feet against the door to prevent them from coming in, and hid in my room. Okay, now that's the guy who survived this robbery. And what's clear is that the 2 of you wearing masks forced these 2 people, these 2 victims, to stand there, and you and the Mr. Lott there accosted these 2 victims and robbed them. And when one of them fled, when they fled, the one was shot and killed. And you heard what he said about the guy with the red mask. So what else do you want to tell me?
I understand what you're saying. But
Yeah, I'm glad you do, because this is your life, sir. But here's the deal, is that you and Mr. Lott there, according to the pre-sentence report that's been admitted, took freedom of choice away from these two victims. These two victims are being accosted by people with guns and masks. They're forced to do things that against their liberty, against their free choice. You took all of that away and then took the life away from one of them. And the other guy was lucky. He wasn't killed. But when you know a gun is present, y'all are forcing victims to give up their money, their liberty, threatening them with their lives. They've lost all independence. You've got the power. You know that. And whatever happens as a result of that, the blood's on your hands as well as his. You knew, if you didn't have a gun, you knew a gun was being used that you were a part of. So y'all had the power over other people, and that's not the way it's supposed to be.
Yes, sir, but I just trying to let you know I had no intentions of hurting anybody. Like, I didn't shoot no one.
What do you think when you're wearing a mask and somebody's got a gun? What do you think's going to happen? What do you think's going to happen if the poor people who are being victimized try to struggle?
Like,
You can't add 2 and 2 together and come up with 4. That's simple.
yes, you know what you're saying, but like, if you know in your heart, like you had no plan on hurting anybody like this.
Why weren't you at home with your family? Why weren't you at home now? You're talking about how wonderful this family is and your family unit. Why weren't you at home with them instead of out there robbing innocent people and sticking guns in their face and being part of a killing?
I never knew it was gonna be a killing, sir. And I'm not saying it was right to be trying to rob nobody.
With a gun.
Yes, sir.
You knew guns were. What do you think the gun was supposed to be? What were you going to do if they tried to struggle with the gun? What were you going to do? Stick it in your ear, up your nose,
No.
under your armpit? What do you think the gun is going to be used for if somebody tries to be combative and save their life?
I understand.
Okay, as long as you understand, because that's a simple one. That's why you don't do this kind of thing. If somebody dies as a result of this poor behavior, the blood is on your hands, not the innocent victims. They're struggling for their life. Y'all had a plan. Y'all had a plan. Y'all had masks, you had a gun, you had a plan to accost people. You worked it out and you found 2 vulnerable people and preyed upon them like vultures. They didn't have a chance. They're just sitting there. They don't have a weapon with them. They're just sitting there taking it. Anybody, I can't imagine being a part of something where I had the overall power over someone, their life like that. And then not understanding and appreciating the loaded gun is going to get used if they try to fight back and save their own life, which would be a natural tendency by a human. The guy was, and here's the deal. The guy was killed trying to flee. I mean, it's a natural tendency. He was just doing what nature, our creator, gave us to save our own lives, to try to save our lives when they're in jeopardy. You're not supposed to be putting people in. That's not your job. It's our creator is supposed to decide who lives and dies, not you and your buddy. This is a terrible situation. This is terrible. And for you to sit here and play Jekyll and Hyde, like you're Dr. Jekyll, but we're Mr. Hyde at the time, it's schizophrenic. You're sitting there and you've got all these letters and all, but that's not the way you acted that night. I didn't see your family. You care about your family and other humans.
People make mistakes.
I'm sorry. And you pay for your mistakes.
I understand that.
All right. It's time to pay.
Just quick follow up on
I just wish this wouldn't have happened. This is so inexcusable. It not only gives you, your family, a cloud over all of them, but the city. You think Port Arthur isn't struggling enough with terrorism? But it's choices that the civilians, the citizens are making. You don't treat other people that way.
So just a quick follow-up and then I'll sit down with you. Oh, I have a few more witnesses, but you do accept responsibility that you participated in a robbery, right? You do accept responsibility that you were there with Mr. Lott. You accept responsibility for that, right?
Yeah.
You accept responsibility for being there and it was two guys that got robbed, right? Right? But at the end of the day, if we take Mr. Lott at his own words, he say, you ain't do that, fam. That was not your work. That's Mr. Lott. You ain't do that, fam. That ain't your work. So when Judge asks to translate street language, when Mr. Lott is saying to you in his words, this ain't your work. In street translation, what does that mean?
I didn't shoot anybody.
Mr. Lott is saying you didn't shoot anyone. This ain't your work. You don't have blood on your hands. That's coming from Mr. Lott, and that's coming from your conversation with Mr. Lott that was recorded that I played for everyone to hear his voice. Is that correct?
Yes.
So
Hold on.
Cell phones off, please.
There's a sign that's outside that's been posted. I will pick up and take the cell phones. And I'm instructing the bailiffs. You find a cell phone open, you pick it up. You're not supposed to have cell phones in here. I know people do, but I don't want to see them. I don't want to know they're being used. I don't want to know they're out. If they are, they're ours now. We've confiscated those. And you can be held in contempt of court. Is y'all going to just sit around and not follow rules? Follow the rules, please. Let me get this clear. He pleaded guilty under oath to murder, hasn't he?
under law of parties.
Sir, blood is on his hands.
Well, under law of parties, yes.
Law of parties is the law.
Yes, law of parties.
Okay, let's get that straight.
Under law of parties.
He's not sitting there by himself.
No, correct.
There were two people involved in this, and it was reasonable to see an outcome like this would happen, whether you shoot the person actually or not.
The only reason I think that's relevant, Judge, for purposes of sentencing, and I made it clear.
I understand.
And he's not, my client is not.
When you say blood is not on your hands, he has pleaded guilty to murder. I know it's a wording thing.
I see what you're saying.
But you are responsible.
But Judge, like I said, for me, the only reason I brought all that out is you're
trying to compare the circumstances between the two parties.
And I think it's important for you, for your sentencing, to know that by his own admission, Lott is the killer. Lott is the one who pulled the trigger by his own admission. And I played his voice for everybody to hear.
Your Honor, we're going to object to this. Continue.
I'm letting him talk. I'm letting him speak. Man, he's making an argument now, and parties are allowed to make arguments, and the court will give the credibility I deem it deserves. But he is pleaded guilty to murder, party or not. Somebody else can actually physically pull a trigger that you were responsible for.
That is absolutely correct.
And the way I'm reading this, both are responsible. And it wouldn't have happened had you, like you say now, been the family man you say you are and should have been at home, not robbing by force and with masks innocent people who deserve to live.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, Kiana Banks. Purity Banks, I'm sorry. Come forward.
Well, Your Honor, the state would has the right to cross examine.
My bad, I'm sorry, I didn't want to. Well, no, he's going to cross.
In just a minute. If you can be brief.
Yes. All right, Mr. Roche. If a Mr. Kirks, Joey Kirks, had told detectives that you and Mr. Lott on the date of the murder, went to the house to rob the victims. Would that be correct?
You tell me if he said this,
Yeah, would that be correct? If he says that you and Mr. Lott went to the house on that date to rob the victims?
is that what he alleged?
I'm asking you a question. If that's what he said, would that be correct or no? Y'all didn't go to rob him? Okay. If he also said that Jalen Lott had told him that he was the one who shot and killed the victim, would that be correct?
Yes.
If he also said,
Who's he?
this is Mr. Joey Kirks.
Yeah, we got a lot of people here and you're just using pronouns. Help us.
If Joey Kirks told detective also at that time that you shot afterwards on this date, would that be correct?
Yes,
So you did shoot.
not in the direction of the victim, but yes.
Now, that would, we're talking about amending the PSI. Would you want that included in there? You left that part out.
I mean, we have a conversation, I admitted my wrong.
You admitted to shooting earlier? Judge asked you a lot of questions. Where did you admit to shooting?
What's clear is, I think he has inferred that he made some bad choices and he's part of this murder, but he wasn't the actual person who shot the weapon, that bullet that hit the victim who died. I think there's the distinction.
But you did shoot, correct?
Yes.
Was it in the direction of the other individual that was there?
So he was in the house.
Now, you said you had 3 kids, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you said you're here taking responsibility, is that correct? Now, if one of those children were killed by someone, 2 actors, one of them is a shooter, but they're both acting together and your child's killed, what should happen to that individual?
I'm not saying like one shot every go free, like I know I have confidence that he would be faced.
Well, what would you want? We talked about your children. What would you want to happen to this individual who participated and ended up one of those children getting killed?
Somebody do a crime, they have to pay for it.
What do you think what would you think they should receive for that?
He answered.
No further question.
I don't have any. I have Mrs. Kearney Banks.
Have a seat, sir. Thank you. Ms. Banks, come forward. Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God. Please have a seat. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Banks, you can state your full name for the record.
Carrie, right?
And what is your relationship with my client, Rakeem Roche?
That's my fiance.
And when do you plan on being married?
It's just that I'm married.
Okay. Let's get straight to the point. You heard about his family history, right?
Mhm.
You understand that he has 3 kids, right?
Right.
All right. How would you describe him as a family man?
He's like his kids. He's very good with his kids. Then he also takes care of me.
Okay. So he's providing support, right?
Yes, sir.
So for purposes of sentencing, we asked the court for a 5-year sentence. And in asking for a 5-year sentence in this particular case, with him being a family man, would your family need him back to help with the family?
Of course.
All right. He's expressed remorse and accepted his conduct in this particular case. Has he expressed remorse with you?
Always.
All right. So with this being a cap of 20 years, can you tell the judge in your own words, why would you be asking for the court to be on the lower end of the cap of 20 at 5? Tell him in your own words.
Because I feel like his kids need him, and even though he did make a mistake, which was a mistake, I feel like they need him and he plays a big part in his kids' life. And he has a lot of things going on with other things that I don't want to mention, but his children really need him. And that's just the main reason to me. And I don't feel like he should be punished for. I'm not gonna say
For doing something he did? He shouldn't be held accountable when he makes a mistake?
He should be held
He-
accountable
he
for
will
what
be.
he did.
He
but
will
not
be
for what he
accountable.
didn't do.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for, you have any questions? I mean, I don't know. All right, Mrs. Mr. Ms. Roche, Mom.
Mr. Laird, do you need some help on something?
Yeah.
Are you good? Okay. Thank you.
Renee.
And raise your right. You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony that you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Yes, sir.
Lower your hand. Thank you.
Go ahead. All right, would you state your full name for the record?
Renee Roche.
And are you my client's Raheem Roche's mother?
Yes, sir.
So without regurgitating everything that we've already discussed, let me get straight to the point, all right?
Yes, sir.
You understand that your son, in fact, did not shoot and kill the deceased in this case, Mr. Lott did.
Yes, sir.
However, your son was a party to this offense, as Judge Stevens explained in his way of questions. You understand that, right?
Yes, sir.
So here's your opportunity, because Judge Stevens is going to do a sentence for Mr. Lott, and he's going to do a sentence for your son, Mr. Roche, right?
Yes, sir.
And obviously, we're asking for less time because Lott is the shooter, Lott is the killer, your son is not. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
In your own words, can you ask and plead to the court why you would be asking for the low end of 5? In your own words, talk to the judge.
Hey, Your Honor, I just ask you to have mercy on my son. I know he participated, but he cannot control nobody's family. Okay, he didn't go there and intend to hurt nobody. And I don't believe Lott did either. You know, the way it happened, he shot him through the door. He didn't mean to shoot the man, but it just so happened when they went to do it, he was on something. He was on drugs.
Now, when you say he was on drugs, you're talking about Lott was on drugs.
Lott was on drugs. He was high
How do you know that?
because my son told me.
Oh, your
He-
son told you.
Yes, he told me.
Oh.
You know, yes. And he didn't mean to do it either. Lott didn't mean to shoot nobody. He's not a bad boy either.
Is there anything
So quite naturally, they bring masks and a gun and force people to give them money. You don't see anything wrong.
Yes, sir. It's totally wrong.
Oh, it is totally
Yes,
wrong.
totally
And
wrong.
when somebody gets killed in that, you
Yes.
understand what- I'm
Yes.
sorry, let me speak and then you can rail.
Yes.
Okay. You see that the murder statute was instituted to encompass this kind of behavior. And that's why there's a range of punishment from as low as 5 up to life in prison for murder. Because it has, every murder is unique with its own set of circumstances. But here, during what we have here really is, correct me if I'm wrong, a capital murder. And the state did not go after the death penalty, but the circumstances could well have caused them to do that under the law. Because when you are committing an aggravated robbery, which is what happens when you're robbing somebody using firearms, and somebody is killed in the course of that, they could get the death penalty. So let's don't minimize this kind of set of circumstances. I mean, but for the decision that they made, there would have been only, they could have pursued 2 options, the death penalty or life without parole. But they didn't. They decided under the circumstances that they would go under the first degree murder statute, where it's 5 to 99 or life. And here it's capped at 20 years. But to listen to people come up and try to minimize the behavior, let's walk it back. Your son and Mr. Locke there should have never even thought about doing this, especially with families. Number two, shouldn't have worn masks to try to conceal your identity and defraud and deceive. Shouldn't have brought a gun. Shouldn't force people against their will to give up their money. And when someone flees for their life, no one should be shot at because they're doing what is a natural instinct that anybody would do. And that's run for their life because they weren't in control anymore. And then that's a final thing that's most important. No human should be in a position where they're not in control, that some other human has forced them to be in a situation where they are no longer in control of their destiny. But that's what your son and this other man did. And they made a conscious decision. And the way I'm hearing people talk, who seem to be very nice people. And here's the deal. They knew better. They grew up in an environment that is right from wrong. Why in the world they would make a bad choice like this is beyond me. But choices have consequences. Yes, sir. And we are all a product of each individual decision we make on our choices. Every day we have numerous choices we make, which dictate whether we go in that direction or that direction. Free will. Free will. Here's the deal. Your son and Mr. Locke exercised their free will. These poor guys, they lost their free will. And this is what our Creator endowed us all with. They took it away. Your son took it away. You're not supposed to be in a position where another human is in control of your life like this by duress. That's not right.
James Trail?
Can I say one more thing?
Then, yes, go ahead.
Sir, I understand the seriousness
All right.
of this situation, but I just ask you, could you please have mercy on both of them? Because, you know, sometimes they're not bad boys, so you send them down to prison and that just changed their whole attitude.
Let me ask you,
about life.
man. The victims' families, they're asking the same thing. Why wasn't mercy shown to them? One of the victims can't ever come back. He's somewhere, I guess in heaven or somewhere. We believe in that sort of thing. This is sacred thing. I mean, we're talking about the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All of those were taken away. Who endowed us with that? It says our Creator. That's the way we formed this country together. Our Creator gave us these things. It's what we make of it. And when we minimize those important things, we must pay a price. Because we're on this planet together and we got to live honestly, harm no one, and give each person their rightful due respect. All three of those components, which encompass the 10 commandments and all laws, those three things were taken away. And now it's time to pay the price.
Even God have mercy on them.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Trail?
And raise your right hand, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Please thank you.
James Fitzgerald Trail Senior.
Go ahead.
All right. Again, I'll go straight to the point.
Yes.
You're his father, right? And when I say his, I'm referring to my client, Rakeem Roche.
That's good.
Like I've been doing with all of my witnesses. I don't want to speak for you. I want you to speak for yourself. Can you, in your own words, tell the judge why you're asking for leniency in this case, mercy in this particular case, and we ask for the 5 years on a 20-year cap? Talk to him in your own words.
Well, Judge, first of all, I'm in a crossroads because I'm in between both families. That was my in-laws over here. And I know them well. I know both of them as kids, but as they grow up, they follow their own way. We can only do so much as parents. And after things take part, they get older. They do their things that they gotta do.
I'm a parent and a grandparent. I
And
understand.
like I speak, just like I bring them in the world, I take them out the world myself, especially if they come at me. But a life was lost. And we can't get that back.
Plus, also remember,
Yes.
you have a second victim.
Yes.
The trauma of seeing your life pass by and you're just clocks tick away from being killed, watching your friend be killed, that trauma will linger.
That is correct. That is correct. So in terms and doing, and for us, somebody taking fault and everything else is like a marriage, you know, when two become one. So the two became one on this instance here. I can't speak for what needs to be said. The only thing I can speak for is maybe that as him, watching him in his last 2 years, what he's been going through and what he's been facing and what everybody been going through, I'm asking for leniency for us, him toward his prison time. Now for us, anything else extra, what he got to do in there to prove himself, to be released from there, that's on his conscience and his will. But as a father, speaking for my son, I know his heart and I know his wrongs. Nobody's perfect, and I know he's not perfect. But he admits to what he have done. He's facing up to what he has done. The only thing I ask that the court be reasonable in that charge. And
If judge puts him in prison for 20 years or 5 years, obviously due to his action, judge, we accept responsibility, due to his action of being involved in this particular. So what I'm going, judge, is this. Under the law of parties, they're both responsible. I totally get that. But who was the shooter by his own words? Who is the one by his language that has no remorse? Who is the one that's the killer, the cold-blooded killer in this case? The cold-blooded killer is Jaylen Lott. Judge, when you look at my client's criminal history, felony history, at least from what I read, none. Misdemeanor history relevant, the possession of marijuana that he got pretrial diversion for. What do you know about my client? You know that he was employed at the time of this incident. You know that he graduated from high school. You know that he had 3 kids. You know that at least according to one baby's mama or the mother of one of those kids, that he took care of those particular kids. But the biggest thing you know is what your own department tells you. When I look at this report prepared by Mrs. Banks, what does your department, what does your probation department tell you? I'm going to read word for word. The TRAS scores indicate a low risk. He's low risk. So I'm not asking you to go off of what Langston is saying. Go off of what your own probation department is saying. He is low risk. So if you send him to jail for 5 years, when he comes out, at whatever amount of time he comes out of jail, right? Depending on what happens. I think you can rest with assurance that he is not going to be the type of guy that will ever cause a problem for this man in our courtroom, our chief of police. Because I'm only responding because you mentioned in Port Arthur, you said, hey, should the citizens of Port Arthur have some kind of concerns about this? That's what the one thing that you were saying. And I agree with you. Citizens of Port Arthur should have concerns about conduct like that. We have our chief of police, Timothy Durso, who's in the courtroom right now. He represents the city of Port Arthur. But what I would say is, in this case, based upon what you have heard, when he gets out of prison, Timothy Durso is not going to have a problem with Raheem Roche. He's not. Timothy Durso is not going to see Raheem Roche. Raheem Roche is going to be the type of guy that's going to be a productive citizen and makes everyone happy.
Imagine doing this. Unless I was sociopathic of some sort. Nobody says they are. But this is behavior that is unlike what we're talking about, that they evolved from in their environment, in their household. But yet they did a terrible thing.
You're absolutely right.
And nobody's convinced me that the circumstances are any different, except they got caught. And they're about to be held accountable. But they're still family people from a family. What's to say? They're not going to make such a foolish decision again. But at the end of the day, it's circumstances, criminal history, other evidence that we get to listen to about their character. But all this good character evidence still resulted in someone's death that they, as you point out, their blood is on each of their hands. And when you are robbing someone against their, forcing them at gunpoint to submit, and then shoot them just because they're trying to flee, anybody can see that that's a logical consequence that can happen in a circumstance where people have guns, the others don't, and the victims are being forced to submit. When they flee and are shot at, that's cold.
And I don't
cold-blooded.
You're right. And I don't think he knew that Jalen Lott was going to shoot a fleeing man.
You don't think that was something that was a potential?
Yes, I agree with you. But he didn't know that Jalen was going to shoot.
Start looking at it.
Right.
I'm saying everybody's walking around with a crystal ball to see what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes. But
you're right.
Their destiny was in your client's hands, Mr. Lott.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, he said, Judge, hey, I wish I was not with Mr. Lott on that day.
Every criminal who comes in here pretty much says the same thing. They wish they could take that back. They say that.
Yes, sir.
But we have too high of a crime rate.
That is true.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate you.
Now let's go to Mr. Lott, please. I'm going at the end. I'm going to assess sentence at the end. And the findings together. And then the sentences shall be assessed independently. That on each of these cases, the defendants have pleaded guilty to the first-degree felony of murder voluntarily, knowingly, intelligently. There was sufficient evidence supporting their guilty pleas from State's Exhibit 1 admitted in the guilty plea hearings on each case to find the defendants guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of the indictments of murder in each of these cases. I so find the defendants guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of the first-degree felony of murder. I am following this agreement in each of these cases, and the defendants are sentenced to confinement in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice to serve a term of 20 years in each case. And in each case, the judgment shall show that a deadly weapon, namely a firearm, was used in the commission of each crime. There are these times where I wish that I could have, the day before this happened, seen you and said, you're about to make a bad choice tomorrow. which is an aberration from the way you apparently were reared in your family and your criminal history. But it was a selection each of you made. You planned out a method of, by using masks to try to hide your identity and using guns when the victims were unable to defend themselves. You preyed upon a fellow human being, two fellow human beings, threatened them with their lives to take their money, what little money. And we're talking about $7 a person's died over, $7. And when they had the audacity to try to flee, one was killed. The audacity. I put that in quotes because it was, this whole event was compounded by what actions you took during the course of these bad choices. And even though one or the other may have actually pulled the trigger, the circumstances show that each of you were together. You were rowing the same boat, as it were, in this situation. You both had masks. You both threatened the people. You both were together taking the money. And when one fled, then one fired, and the other one, who may not have killed someone, actually certainly had the knowledge and intelligence to foresee that such an event could likely happen under the circumstances where someone was being threatened with their lives like this. But this, at the end of the situation, the court has used some terms, but it's the kind of situation that humans should not be put in. And that is, these two victims had completely lost their free will. You were in control of your free will. You were in control of their destiny. And you made a conscious choice to terminate the life, a human life. And you know better. You knew better. Now, 20 years. That's terrible, because you're going to have to do 10 years. Then you're going to have to serve 1/2 before you're parolable. And that's a long time. However, two things one needs to look at in this situation. In all law and circumstances, this could have been indicted as a capital murder, where the only two options would have been life without parole or the death penalty. Because killing someone in the midst of an aggravated robbery, which is what this was, threatening their lives and taking money without their free will, subjected you to capital murder, but it wasn't indicted that way. And I'm sure your attorneys may have had something to do with seeing that your limitation of exposure away from the death penalty be done, but they certainly limited this exposure of 99 up to 99 years imprisonment or life imprisonment, because no matter what your life's history has been, we are all held accountable to each choice we make in life. And this was a choice that is completely off a center for the way you apparently were reared and your family situation. The point being is, unlike a lot of people who come before this court who have had little hope in their lives, you knew better. You knew right from wrong. And yet you still took, and you go to church and you know what's right. And still you made a conscious decision that resulted in, it was foreseeable, it could happen, that somebody would lose, a fellow human would lose their life, and another person would have to live with the horror of the fact that he's lucky and that his freedom was completely taken away from him by another human being. And that's not what's supposed to happen. We're not supposed to, everybody's supposed to, like the Declaration of Independence says, have liberty, entitled to life, and to pursue happiness. All of those were taken away from him, from the victims in this case, by you, each of you. And that's not your position. That's our Creator, not you. And you don't stand in the place of our Creator. But what has happened today is what is the very first part of the preamble of the Constitution of the United States, where we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, one, establish justice. This is the administration of justice under this circumstance. And I wish that your choices would have been so much different, that a little voice before this happened from your family's history, from your family's guidance, or from the eyes of your children, you would have reflected on how much you were going to be subject to losing by making such a poor choice, and how someone has lost something for eternity, and that is life on this planet. That is the order of the court, and that is the administration of justice under these cases. You were taken into custody, and in these cases, we are in recess.